The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings. I'm Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate -269687.1. I am the Admiral in question, and today we're going to be looking at mission readiness from an equipment point of view. But what does any of that mean? So before we get to any of that, I'd like to just welcome everybody who's joined us here in the screening room today. So these videos, in case you aren't aware, are streamed live to our Discord server, the USS Dauntless Discord server. More about what that is in a moment. If you are an active duty member of the crew, you are welcome to join us for the recording, which is at an awkward time, 12:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, South African Standard Time, which is a little bit awkward, middle of the day on a weekday. So not nobody is required to attend, but if you're able to, please do. Join us in the screening room and you can join in the chat. Right now we have Captain Van Grienen, we've got Master Chief Newton, Lieutenant Commander Shamali, Colonel Yobert, and Master Chief Kotza. Thanks for joining us today. I have a quick request for those in the chat. There's a lot of conversation in the screening room chat, which is great. That's why we're here. But when I get to the end and I'm looking through for questions, it can be a little bit challenging reading through all of the conversation. So please don't feel free. So please don't feel the need to censor your chat. By all means, engage as you feel free, as you feel so inclined. But if you have a question or a comment directed at me, please make sure that you @tag me in the chat so that as I'm scrolling through, when we get to the end, I know which ones to look at and which ones I can peruse later at my leisure. So yes, if you have a comment or a question, please @me in the chat so that I know to address it. Otherwise, if you are not an active duty member of the crew, you're welcome to watch these streamed live also to YouTube. I am sometimes able to see the comments in our YouTube channel, so you're welcome to ask questions or drop comments there too. Otherwise, if you are not available at this time to watch us live, you're welcome to download the videos or at least watch the videos on YouTube later or on Facebook, where they are available there. You're welcome to drop any questions or comments you might have in the comment sections in either of those places, or anywhere else where you feel like you might be able to reach me. So whether that's again on our Discord server or private message to me on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any other place. If you'd like to reach out with a question or a comment, please do so. I'll either do my best to address the question there and then. Otherwise, we can talk about it later, perhaps in an upcoming video, which would be nice. All right, let us get to some of the things that I mentioned. So mission readiness equipment, what do those words mean? Let's switch to here. So let's start by first addressing the unspoken question, what is the USS Dauntless? Why are we even here? Why are we doing any of this? What is the point? Let me first, hang on, turn on the camera here. Apologies, people in the Discord are not getting the full experience. Let me make sure that's happening. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Okay, that's better. All right. So what is the USS Dauntless? Now, we are a Star Trek fan club, which is not a great name for an type of organization. What is a fan club? Fan club conjures up images of a bunch of fans sitting in their parents' basement discussing their collectible collections. And while that is not inaccurate, we do a fair amount of that kind of thing. It's only a small fraction of what we do. So describing us as a Star Trek fan club is not inaccurate, but it's incomplete. So we take on that label begrudgingly. But what more are we? So firstly, we're based in Cape Town, South Africa. That is our physical headquarters, although we are also an online organization. So a lot of our activities, or all of our activities, are coordinated online via Discord. And we then go out in the world and do things in person from there. So we have groups of members in cities around the world, mostly around South Africa, but we have 2 other away teams elsewhere in the world. And we try to coordinate activities so that we can all do things together, either in our respective living rooms or in our respective teams out in the world doing things in those different places. We are a Starfleet style club, complete with ranks, titles, and uniforms. What does that mean? It means that we have fashioned at least the superficial kind of cosmetic visual elements of what our organization does and how we function after the fictional Starfleet. The Starfleet, of course, as depicted in Star Trek. And Starfleet is the organization that most of the characters in Star Trek belong to. They are a sort of an exploratory slash military service. We are neither of those things. We are first and foremost a fan community, but we have other aspects to what we do as well. But we try to style our organizational structure after them because we think that not only is it really cool, but also there are lessons in efficiency and practicality to be learned from what we see in Star Trek. So we emulate them in a lot of different ways. Furthermore, we are a chapter of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated, or Starfleet International SFI, any number of different names. So Starfleet is the largest Star Trek fan club in the world, thousands of members across hundreds of chapters in dozens of countries around the world. What is a chapter? Chapter is a local group of Starfleet members that is semi-autonomous, which means that we are affiliated with Starfleet International, but we are granted a considerable amount of autonomy in deciding how we govern ourselves, as long as we comply with various Starfleet International regulations. But being a chartered chapter of Starfleet International gives us access to that global network of fans, so it's worth it for us to continue being that. So we are mostly an online group, but we also get together in person, and we the ranks and titles that we carry. So it's again based on the fictional Starfleet. You heard my title is Commanding Officer, and my rank is Admiral. Those are not cosmetic or ceremonial or pretend. They are real titles that we've earned through doing things in the real world. So that's things like volunteering for service or engaging with crewmates in day-to-day activities in the ship, aboard the ship. The ship, of course, is conceptual. It's metaphorical. There's no physical starship, the USS Dauntless. The ship is not a real ship. It is the crew. It is the ideological backdrop to what binds us together to do the things that we want to do. All right, so that's what the USS Dauntless is. And next we want to look at what the mission is. In mission readiness, what is the mission? So we have the mission. The mission of the USS Dauntless is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of humankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. What does any of that mean? Who is Gene Roddenberry? He is this guy in this photograph. He is the guy who basically invented Star Trek. He came up with the original concept and he got the ball rolling. Hundreds, if not thousands of other people have worked on Star Trek since he started it back in the 1960s, but he was the original guy. It was a child of his imagination. So we thank Gene Roddenberry for constructing the vision that we think is so important and valuable. And what is that vision? So Star Trek is a science fiction show set in the future, hundreds of years in the future, and it depicts a world in which most of the problems that we face here today, things like crime, disease, poverty, war, have been largely, if not entirely, eliminated, at least on Earth. And Gene Roddenberry envisioned us achieving that world through a number of forms of advancement: social, economic, technological, scientific, various other ways. And what we as Starfleet officers do is that we want to help to move our world today towards that ideal future, to try and make changes in the world that bring it closer to what Gene Roddenberry envisioned our possible future might look like, in a number of different ways. Now, that is clarified under a number of different standing orders, but the only one that's here that's really relevant to today's conversation is standing order number 2, which is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. And the point of clarification underneath that one, which is to work to better ourselves mentally and physically. And when we're talking about mission readiness, that's really what we're talking about, is the philosophy behind doing what we as Starfleet officers, as individual officers, can do in order to make ourselves more ready to undertake both the global mission as well as discrete individual missions. Each time we do a thing in the world, that is a mission. Whether we're gathering together to watch that is a mission, or whether we're doing a 5K run, that's a mission, or when we're going out and donating blood together, which is our most important mission, that also is a mission. All of those discrete missions together form part of the mission. So we want to be ready not only for the mission, but also for those discrete missions. And there are 3 broad categories that we've discussed at length in these briefings in the past. Those cover physical readiness, so that is essentially your muscles, your heart, your lungs, getting your body ready in a state that it can attempt any mission successfully, hopefully. Then there is the mental side of things, and that is acquiring the necessary skills that you need in order to complete any mission. And then there is the emotional side of mission readiness, which is finding the courage, the fortitude, the determination to follow through on the missions, especially the ones that take place over time, making sure that we see those through to fruition. But there is a fourth aspect that we haven't really touched on at all up until now, and that is equipment. So those three forms of mission readiness address what happens inside you, inside your body, inside your brain. But what about outside your body? What about the things we adorn ourselves with, about the things that we take with us in order to assist us to complete those missions? What about the external technological aspect of mission readiness? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about standard equipment that Starfleet personnel should be carrying with us. So the first layer of Starfleet equipment, which is the component that we're probably using most often, at least the part of the equipment that people will identify us when they're thinking about what a Starfleet officer is what I'm wearing right now, my uniform. Uniform is equipment. I've done an extensive video on uniform standards, and I'm not going to go into great detail about them today, but we'll do a quick recap of what the uniform standards of the USS Dauntless are. So here on the uniforms page on our website, if you want to learn more about this, you can go to the USS Dauntless website, pull up the menu, go down to crew resources, uniforms and equipment, uniforms, and there you will find here. In fact, this is the video in which we've done an extensive review of the uniform standards, but essentially we have three categories of uniforms here on the Dauntless. So before we go any further, let me explain how the metaphorical aspect of Starfleet works. So you'll notice that the starship here at the top here, that is the USS Dauntless, the fictional USS Dauntless, but it is something that we've selected from Starfleet International. We've chosen that particular class of ship, and what that does is it anchors in the fictional universe of Star Trek various thematic elements of our existence as a chapter. So this is a defined class starship, which in the fictional future of Star Trek was in service from the 2370s to 2380s. So in other words, it anchors us in the period of the Dominion War, 2373, 2375, somewhere around there. And so all of the various visual thematic elements that we use are anchored in that same time period. And one of the things that impacts is our uniforms. So the uniforms that we wear are the ones that are anchored in that time period, in the Dominion War, the late 2370s and through into the 2380s. So we have three classes of uniforms: Class A, which are for formal wear; Class B, which are for everyday; and then Class C, which are mission specific. Let's go through those quickly. So the Class A uniform is your formal uniform. It's the uniform equivalent of a posh suit or perhaps a tuxedo or even a ball gown. At a formal function, something like a wedding or a formal reception or something like that, you would be expected to wear a Class A uniform, also called a dress uniform. This comes in different versions depending on who you are on board. If you are one of the enlisted personnel, this is the version that you wear. It's a long gray jacket with light gray piping articulating the various details. This is the commissioned officer's version, which has a slightly shorter white jacket with a blue undershirt. It's not really an undershirt, it's part of the same garment, but it's styled to look as if it's an undershirt, which now has these gold detail edges around the sides of it, as well as branch of service color piping firstly around the neck of the collar. This image is not high enough detail for you to see it, but also a branch of service color striping around the sleeve. What is branch of service color? We'll go into that in a moment. And then for flag officers, so this is for people who are rank commander and up. It's the same basic design as general officers, except now the undershirt is now white instead of that gray-blue color. If you do not own a Class A uniform, you may substitute it with a Class B, but just make sure with the mission commander that is acceptable for the mission in question. All right, then we go to the Class B uniform, and this is intended to be your everyday uniform, your standard duty uniform that we wear for all of our missions. Now, obviously, a lot of our missions here on the Dauntless take place online, and then unless we're on camera like I am now, there isn't really any need to wear a uniform. You can sit naked on your chair if you want to. Please just leave your camera off if you're doing that. But when we're out in the world, this is the uniform that we should be wearing for most of our missions, ideally, under ideal circumstances. Enlisted personnel and commissioned officers wear the same version of the uniform. It comes in two styled variants. There's the one-piece jumpsuit variant or the trouser and jacket variant. And this has similar lines to the Class A uniform, except now the full body of the uniform is black, and we have these gray shoulders. There's a branch of service color undershirt underneath it, and branch of service color stripes around the sleeves. So most people wear this version of the uniform. There's also a com badge, which I neglected to mention here on the left breast. And also rank insignia is worn on the right collar. Unless you are of a certain rank, which I am, then it goes to both collars. This is the captain's variant of the SDU. So the commanding officer of the starship only, so that's me at the moment, is entitled to wear this captain's variant, which has the same undershirt, the same collar and all of that kind of thing, but the jacket is replaced by this gray and black waistcoat, which is pretty cool. I think I might try to secure myself one of these for this summer, because this full SDU can get a little warm. There's also one for cadets, which we currently don't have. Cadets are members under the age of 18. It's very similar to the one-piece variant upstairs, but instead of black, it's gray. Instead of the shoulders being gray, they are branch of service color, and instead of the undershirt being branch of service color, it's gray. And then this is the version that I'm wearing, which is the Admiralty version. It's very similar to the normal two-piece variant, except the jacket is longer. There is gold piping up and down the front zip here, as you can see, and around my collar. The branch of service sleeve stripe is thicker. It's got gold banding on either side. And there's a heavy belt, which you can't see. It's below the camera level right now. And then, of course, as I mentioned, admirals wear rank insignia on both sides. That is the case for most of the times that we've seen this uniform in Star Trek canon. So that is in the actual Star Trek series. On a couple of appearances in 2384, so this is towards the end of this period, of the period during which this uniform was in use, we saw admirals wearing it only on the right-hand side and not on both sides. I'm not sure what we're supposed to read into that. Maybe it's a different variant, whatever it is. But we use the Dominion War era version, which is this one, which has the rank insignia on both sides. It also sometimes the rank insignia is worn on the sleeves, but again, not consistently. I've chosen not to do that. Now, alternatives of the Class B are the Class C uniforms, which we're going to get to in a moment. So if you don't own a Class B, you may substitute it with a Class C, but you want to check with the commanding officer of the mission in question to make sure that that is correct. But let's look at the Class C. Now, Class C uniforms are designed for specific missions. The most common one, which is the one that most new members of the crew are likely to get, is the LU. So this is a uniform that's not taken from Star Trek canon. This is one that we have designed ourselves. We wanted a uniform that was both inexpensive and easy to put together, because some of these others, the Class B and the Class A, can be quite pricey and complicated to assemble. There's lots of different parts, but we wanted something that could be thrown together in an afternoon, and that is how we arrived at the leisure uniform, the LU, which is a Class C. Typically, the LU uniform should be worn it's the equivalent of an off-duty uniform, or for casual events, so movie nights, games nights at people's homes, that kind of thing. But again, if you don't have any other kind of uniform, this will do as a substitute. And what is the LU? It is a branch of service color t-shirt paired with dark trousers, whether that's blue jeans or cargo pants or whatever, and some boots. There are upgrades that are available for this uniform. You can attach a Dauntless patch to the left sleeve. You can sling a com badge on it. You can pair it with a Dauntless cap, all kinds of things. But the basic uniform is just a colored t-shirt and dark trousers, and you are good to go. So if you pop to your local retailer, as long as you find a shirt that's the right color, you can have your leisure uniform ready today. Different versions as well. We're not limited to just the one kind, so you can replace your blue jeans with dark trousers. You can have a long sleeve version of the t-shirt if that's more comfortable or practical for you, or if you don't have that, you can have a black long sleeve t-shirt underneath your regular t-shirt for winter or something like that. That's all fine. You can also pair it with a black jacket or waistcoat or something like that on top to make it nice and comfortable. We also have the battle fatigue. So these are for combat related missions, something like paintball or laser tag or something like that. You would wear a version of this. This is also customizable based on the mission in question. So you might not wear the same version of this uniform for something like paintball as you would for historical European martial arts. The physical requirements of the armor might be different from, or of the uniform might be different from one to the other. One might need integrated armor, one might need to be tights or something like that. But as long as the lines are consistent, then it still qualifies as this Class C uniform. This one doesn't even need to have the rank insignia or com badge with it. Those are optional. Then we have the physical training uniform. So this is for exercise related missions. So it's a gray shirt with a branch of service color stripe across it, optionally with a com badge. And this also is customizable. It can be sleeveless or long sleeve, depending on the requirements of your mission. But for all of these, if you don't have one of these specific Class C uniforms, you can replace it with the LU, because that is sort of the generic fallback uniform for everybody if you need it. So those are the Class C uniforms. So those are the various different uniforms. And why are uniforms important? Why do they matter? So it's important for us as an organization to be able to demonstrate. Oh, let me show you the branch of service colors. I'm just looking at it now. So each department within the Dauntless falls under a particular branch of service, and there are 3. So departments, I've done a series of briefings on the various different departments on board. Each department is responsible for a different aspect of life aboard the Dauntless, and every member in the crew falls under one of those departments. But each department belongs to a different sort of area of interest or discipline, and there are 3 of those. So one is command, and it includes the command department and the recruits. Operations branch of service includes the operations, engineering, and communications and security departments. The sciences branch of service includes the science and medical departments. So if you fall under one of those departments, that is the branch of service that you would match your uniform to. So why do uniforms matter? Why they're important is that we need to be able to present to the outside world and to each other a unified image of us belonging to this institution. And there is information contained within our uniforms, things like our branch of service color, our rank insignia, and that kind of thing, that is encoded information to other members of the organization, both members of the Dauntless as well as members of Starfleet International and anybody else who knows how to read our insignia. They can tell certain things about us. So, for example, if I'm walking around wearing a sciences branch of service color, then people know that I'm a sciencey type person, and that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in. If I'm wearing operations gold, then people know that I'm the kind of person that's more interested in making things happen. If I'm wearing command red, that means that I'm more interested in hopefully making and executing decisions on behalf of everybody else. But also the rank insignia will tell you how much time and effort that person has put into the organization over time. So the rank of Admiral, which is what I have, took me about 23 years to earn that rank through doing stuff in the world, within the organization and outside of it. And that has value, at least to me, and I hope to everybody else who wears the uniform. If your rank is Senior Chief Petty Officer or Ensign or Lieutenant Junior Grade, that represents the work that you have put in, and you should be proud of it because it's something that you have earned. We also have to make sure that we're not wearing incorrect insignia, because doing so take something away from the people who have earned the correct insignia, and by wearing the wrong insignia, you are dissing them, disrespecting them, as it were. So if you're wearing a rank insignia that is not correct for your rank, even if you're wearing the insignia for a lower rank, you are still disrespecting the people who have your shared rank and the people below you of the rank that to which that belongs, because now you're indicating that you don't take this stuff as seriously as they do, and some people take it very seriously. So uniforms, very important piece of equipment, and it's something we should all assemble. And it's usually the second piece of equipment that every member of the Dauntless puts together is, at the very least, their LU. So those are uniforms, and uniforms matter, and why they're important. But the next thing is other equipment. So things that we use, tools to get involved out in the world. Now, if you're looking at my uniform, you'll notice that it has this piece of equipment here. This is just this is what we call a comm badge, which is communicator badge. In the fictional Star Trek, this is a vital piece of equipment that every Starfleet officer needs. It is essentially a communicator. It has a number of interesting features. It allows voice communication with other members of the crew. It has a range of, I think it's several 100,000 kilometers just on its own, even longer if it's connected to a subspace network. It's touch activated. Well, it has 3 activation modes actually that we've seen. Sometimes it's touch activated. You would touch it and that would activate it. It can be voice activated, so you can issue a voice command and have it turn on, or it even has a push to talk mode, where when it's linked to a specific channel, by holding it down, you can then talk and release to have it muted. You can also communicate either with other individuals or with the computer. You can issue computer commands from there and have it do things. It also has a locator beacon in it. It has all kinds of interesting functionality. Now, here now this comm badge doesn't do any of those things. This one is just a hunk of metal. It is uh, I wouldn't say decorative, but it is superficial. It's here to represent the fact that I'm a member of Starfleet. It's part of my the visual part of my uniform, but it's not actually part of my useful equipment. It's not one of the tools. The closest thing I have to something like that in the real world is something like this, which I'm sure you've seen. This is Samsung earbuds. I'm going to pull one of these out. This device is very similar to the fictional comm badge. So it permits voice communication. It's touch activated. It's got a touch panel on the side there. I can tap it quickly to activate or deactivate. I can hold and touch to issue a computer command. Things it doesn't have a very long range. It needs to be connected to a secondary device within a range of about 10 meters. So it can't operate autonomously. It doesn't have any kind of location circuitry in it. The battery life is not very good. It's only good for a few hours, whereas a fictional comm badge can go for months without being needed, without needing to be recharged. So this is not really an adequate substitute for a comm badge. It's a very useful piece of equipment, and I use this every single day, but it's no comm badge. So what do we use instead of a comm badge? What is our, here in the real world Starfleet, what is our equivalent of a comm badge? Now we have a digital comm badge, which is Discord. So Discord is it's an online platform that we use to communicate with one another. If you are watching this in the screening room right now, you already know what Discord is. It's a communications platform that allows us to chat with each other online. It has voice communication capabilities, video communication capabilities, and text. Text is probably the easiest way to use, but we use it for all kinds of things. We have dozens of channels on our Discord server, each one set up for a specific purpose. We are able to control access level at an individual or at a category-based level so that each individual member only sees the parts of the server that are relevant to that member. They don't need to see all of them. And it's an immensely useful tool. Most importantly, it is free to use. There is a premium tier that you can purchase called Nitro, which allows you to upgrade your personal experience, but you don't need to have Nitro in order to use the tool. It's very, very useful. So this is our central communications platform that we run everything from. This is the closest that the real Starfleet has to a comm badge. Every member of the USS Dauntless needs to have a Discord account connected to our Discord server in order to be a member. It is mandatory. If you're not on our Discord server, then you are not active duty. You can't, in fact, you're not even a reserve. You can't function as a member of the crew if you are not on the Discord server. So that is very important, and that is our digital comm badge. So we don't have a real world comm badge. We don't have a physical comm badge, at least not a practical one. We have a digital comm badge, and I'll get to in a moment how we use it and where we use it. So we have on the Dauntless, let me find the right tab. I've got so many tabs here, I can't see the titles. Here we go. So we have a set of recommended equipment. So now we're talking about physical equipment that we recommend Starfleet officers assemble that allow them to do their job. So the first and most important one, well, it's one of two. So the one we kind of all probably already have is this one called a PAD, Personal Access and Display Device. So in Star Trek, it's a little flat panel like this. It's a computing device in which it has a screen, it has touch activated controls, and it allows connection to the subspace network, which is the 24th century equivalent of the internet. It allows voice input, voice output. You can use it for video conferencing. It has all kinds of interesting equipment included in it. And the 21st century equivalent of that device is one of these. It is a smartphone. So just about everybody has one of these. You can see there's my wallpaper. Here's my little friend Scoop. He's a meerkat. So this is a very useful device. It pretty much emulates all of the functionality of the fictional pad. The battery life, again, is not quite as good. The fictional pad can go for months on a single charge, whereas we usually have to recharge these once a day, once every couple of days if we're lucky. But it has a few extra features that the fictional pads don't have. So this has sensors on it. So it has cameras and various other sensors that we can use. So it's kind of sort of a little bit like a tricorder, although we don't have anything that's really a tricorder here in the real world. This is about as close as we get. Those sensors can help us to do things. We can use the cameras to do visual searches on objects in the world, which is kind of sort of like scanning for life forms. That's pretty cool. But for the most part, this is a communications and information retrieval device. With your pad, with your smartphone, you can connect to Discord. So you're running your digital comm badge on this physical device. So let's look at what specifications your pad should have. So a smartphone or tablet, so this kind of a pad is acceptable too. One this size is also fine. It has similar specifications. It even has sensors on it. It's perhaps just a little less convenient, but either one or both of those is acceptable. It doesn't really matter which operating system you use. There are the two main operating systems that drive pretty much all pads at the moment is either Android or iOS. There are a couple of other small ones, but nobody really cares about those. Those are the two ones that matter. And all of the stuff that we need to have on our pad is available to those operating systems. So the things that your pad needs to have on it, first of all, is the Discord app. Again, this is free to download. You can go to either the Apple Play Store or to the Google Play Apple Play Store? No, the Apple Store. Is that what it's called? The iStore? I've lost track of what it is. But you go to that, the place where you buy your apps on your Apple device. That's where you go to download Discord. It's free of charge. And on your Android device, you go to the Google Play Store and you download it, you install it, you log in with your credentials, and then you can access your Discord virtual comm badge from there. It also needs to have a GPS navigation system. Google Maps is a good one for that, but there are plenty of others that are arguably just as good, if not better. This will then allow you to navigate your way to and from missions, which is kind of important. It needs to have a camera and a photo sharing application like Google Photos. Google Photos is a good one, but again, there are plenty of others that do the job just as well. Why a camera? Well, as we're conducting our missions, we need to be able to take photographs to collect evidence of the fact that the mission has happened, as well as to record for posterity moments of interest. So a camera is important, and we need a photo sharing application because we need somewhere to get those photographs to everybody else. Discord has that kind of built in, but you want to have something that's better than just what Discord has. In case we want to export those photos to other platforms and we need a higher quality image than the one that Discord posts. You need a sufficiency of airtime or mobile data. So most pads have cellular connectivity, which means that they can connect to a cellular network. But cellular network connectivity is seldom free of charge. You need to purchase with real world currency the ability to transact on those networks. And that comes in the form of airtime or mobile data. Sometimes it's prepaid, so like a contract plan where you pay a monthly fee and then you get a certain amount of data or airtime. Sometimes you have to do postpaid. That's postpaid, or you get prepaid. You get vouchers which purchase you a certain amount of data, or something in between. But you need to make sure that you have enough data or airtime loaded on your device that it can connect to the network and transmit information. Otherwise, you're going to be logged out of Discord and you won't be able to use your virtual comm badge. You also need to make sure that you have sufficient storage space for applications to function and for a number of photos to be taken. So this is a thing that happens with older devices, is the longer you have it, the longer you use it, they tend to become cluttered with photographs that you've taken, videos that you've downloaded, or apps that you've installed over the years, and they tend to run out of space. This is a matter of personal maintenance of your device. You need to make sure that old stuff that you haven't used or that you don't need anymore has been removed from your device, that you've backed up your old media like photographs and videos to a cloud-based storage medium, or download it to a hard drive on your desktop or whatever it is. You want to make sure that that is backed up off of your pad so that you can clear up space on the pad to make sure that those apps are all functioning. You need to make sure that you have sufficient battery charge to last the duration of the mission. So you don't want to be showing up at a mission when you're on 5% battery. You want to make sure you're fully charged on the way. Charge it in the car or charge it at home before you leave. Make sure that you're charged up on your way to the mission. And then you want to make sure that you have protective gear for your device. These devices are alarmingly fragile and delicate. I feel like they're probably made that way, but still you want to make sure that they are protected. So you want to have a cover, some kind of rugged shielding to make sure that it doesn't get damaged on the back, and a screen protector, usually some kind of glass or plastic layer that you can apply to the front of the screen to protect it from scratches and nicks, which will extend the lifespan of your device. So that is what the pad looks like. We can recommend that you carry it in a container. Typically, a pad is small enough to fit in your pocket. But let's say you don't have pockets, or the current mission makes it impossible for you to carry your pad in a pocket. What should you carry it in? Recommend that you have some kind of a pouch, something that looks like this. It needs to be large enough to contain the pad. That is a non-trivial detail. You need to make sure that it's the right size. So in order for it to be compatible with uniform standards, it should be either black or silver in color. So something like this would be ideal. that should be plain with no branding or logos emblazoned upon it. So no Adidas logos or anything like that, unless it has a Starfleet Delta or something like that. But you want to check with your mission commander just in case to make sure that it's fine. Recommended for the container that it be MOLLE compatible. MOLLE is a system invented, I think, by the American military, but it's become quite popular. I've got an example of a MOLLE container here. This is not the right container for your pad, by the way, but it'll give you a sense of what MOLLE looks like. It is a modular system whereby you can attach multiple different containers together to customize and build a more suitable container. So you'll notice that it has all kinds of loops and straps in all various shapes and configurations. It's got these things at the back that open up. There are either press studs or Velcro, and it allows you to mix and match various different pieces of equipment together to form one big container that suits all of your needs. So maybe you've got a small container like this, and you can attach another small container onto the one side over there, or perhaps you want to attach this whole thing onto a larger container like a backpack or a rucksack or something like that. The MOLLE system allows you to do that, and it's very cool. So recommend that your container is MOLLE compatible. It's not strictly a requirement, but it's a good idea. And tactical styling helps to make it look a little bit cooler so that it fits in more neatly with your uniform. So that's what the pad should be. The other one that you're going to definitely need is a workstation. Now, strictly speaking, you can choose, you only need one. You need either a pad or a workstation. Pretty much everybody, at least in South Africa in 2024, has a pad already, but it's a good idea to have both a workstation and a pad because they serve different functions. The reason why you need to have at least one of those things is that you need one device to connect to Discord from, and both of those devices can support Discord. Ideally, you have both, so you can do pad things with the pad and other things with the workstation. And we'll get into what the workstation does in a moment. So a workstation is basically a computer, a desktop computer. Now, the minimum requirements for a desktop computer are as follows. It needs to be a desktop or notebook computer. A laptop is acceptable with the following specifications. It needs to have a desktop operating system installed. So that could be Windows 11, Mac OS, Ubuntu, or any other Linux distribution, Chromium, the Chromium operating system, or any other equivalent desktop operating system. You will need to have a Chromium-based web browser installed. So that's Google Chrome, Chromium itself, Microsoft Edge, or Opera. One of those are very important. I mean, you can try use something like Firefox, but you're going to struggle. A Chromium-based web browser is quite important. If you're not sure what any of these terms mean, feel free to drop a question to the engineering team or to Google it or whatever. And you're going to need a stable, always-on internet connection like ADSL, fiber, or wireless broadband. Fiber is becoming increasingly pervasive throughout at least the urban centers in South Africa and through most other regions. But for at least in the short term, you might need to rely on things like wireless broadband until all of those gaps are filled in the fiber coverage map. So these are the minimum, absolute minimum requirements that you'll need for your workstation. That will allow you to get online, to open Discord, at least in the browser, and to connect to the internet. But we recommend that you go a little bit further than that so that you can participate in more missions. So hardware-wise, you're looking at these specifications. These are probably a little out of date, but why did we choose these specific numbers? Now, those were the minimum requirements for the game Star Trek Online about 4 years ago. Probably is still the minimum requirements. Why Star Trek Online? That's one of the games that we play here aboard the Dauntless. It's not a very resource intensive game, but it does have minimum requirements. Any new machine that you buy this year will probably meet all of these requirements easily enough. But if you have an older machine, you might need to do a little bit of upgrading here or there to bring it up to spec. It needs to have a webcam so that you can join sessions like this. Although I'm the only one talking on this webcam at the moment, there are occasions where we have meetings on camera, and so a webcam is quite important. Again, a pad, most pads these days have a built-in camera, but we want to make sure that your workstation has one too. You need to have an audio headset. Now, this is a complicated question. So, audio headsets are important for two reasons. One, you want to be able to hear audio when we are doing audio related activities. So whether we're watching a Star Trek episode together or playing a game together, something like that, or, you know, listening in on a briefing with the Admiral. So a headset is good for that. But also you want to be able to speak through the headset. So most headsets also have a microphone so that you can participate via voice, because we do have sessions where we're all talking. But now It's also very nice to have a wireless headset. You don't want to be necessarily encumbered by wires connecting you to your workstation. So the tendency is to go out and get yourself the cheapest wireless headset you can find, which is typically something like this. This is a Volcano Bluetooth headset, which is relatively inexpensive. And the audio quality is pretty good, actually. It's not bad if you're just listening to music or you're playing a game or something like that. It's pretty good. The problem comes in with something like this as soon as you connect to a voice channel on Discord, because most Bluetooth devices are happy to transmit a high quality audio signal if it's only going one way. But if you connect to a channel that requires two-way communications, like a voice channel on Discord, it can't handle that level of quality. So it drops you down to a lower tier connection that works in both directions. So you're going to lose audio quality on your music or on your game sound or whatever other thing you might be doing. So if you're doing that, if you have a set of these, if you're going to be voice chatting, you might want to plug in via cable that has an audio jack there. You can connect in, and then you're not losing voice quality, or you just have to put up with a reduced voice quality, or you might have to invest a little more heavily in something more like this. Apologies, I've got a pile of equipment here. Something a bit more like this. This is the Arctis Steel series. This is a headset designed specifically for gaming. It's also wireless, but it's not Bluetooth. So it comes with an extra little dongle that you can connect to your desktop via USB, and it permits high quality audio in both directions all the time, regardless of what you're doing. It also has an integrated microphone, which is pretty cool. And the battery life is pretty good too. Also more comfortable. It's going to set you back a couple of grand for something like this, but it is available. It is possible to find Bluetooth headset that doesn't reduce audio quality when you connect to voice, but those are quite expensive. You're going to be looking at 3 grand, north of 3,000 rand. So rand, South African rands for those who are watching from overseas. That's the kind of price point you're looking at for Bluetooth headsets that are capable of that two-way high quality audio. So these specialized gaming headsets are probably a good option. They're a little bit cheaper, and they're very good. The only downside is that they're not Bluetooth, which means that they're not compatible with your pad. They can only connect to your workstation. So that's an audio headset. In terms of software, these are the recommendations. Although it is possible to run something like Star Trek Online on a Linux based desktop, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle with that kind of thing. There's going to be software and hardware compatibility issues up the wazoo. You're basically making your own life a million times more difficult than it needs to be if you're running something like Linux. So Windows 11 or Mac OS have all of those problems solved pretty much out of the box. Now, it's perhaps less of an issue when it comes to something like Star Trek Online, but Discord can be a real issue because if you're running an unsupported Linux distro, there's no native Discord client. What do I mean by that? So a native client is a piece of software that you download and runs a program on your computer, as opposed to when you open a web page and you run the software through the web page. If you're doing that on a poorly supported or an unsupported operating system, that local desktop client is not going to work very well, and there are going to be basic features of Discord that are not going to be available, or they just won't work. One that we've run into multiple times on the Dauntless is the inability to stream audio when screen sharing, which is quite important if you're hosting a watch party. You need to be able to stream both video and audio, but the software incompatibilities just don't permit it to happen. You'll also struggle to do that if you're running Discord out of a browser instead of the local client. But if you're running the local client on Windows 11, all of those things are pretty much sorted for you. You don't really need to worry about it. Google Chrome is the preferred Chromium-based web browser because it has integration to your Google account, and because a lot of the tools that we use here on the Dauntless run on the Google Workspace, it allows that single sign-on, which lets you connect seamlessly to all of your various different Dauntless-related tools. So it is slightly easier to use Google Chrome to do that stuff, but something like Microsoft Edge or Opera it's okay. It's fine. Steam is quite important because that is the online store that allows you to purchase games like Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online, of course, is free, but it allows you to download and install that game from there. Discord, I said again, that you want to be running the native desktop client for Discord if you possibly can, because that's, again, it's going to help you to evade those software and hardware compatibility issues and bypass any kinds of performance limitations that running Discord in the browser might impose on you. It's lighter, it's easier, it's quicker. So the desktop version of Discord is usually better. And then, of course, we get to Star Trek Online. It's going to be difficult for you to play Star Trek Online if you don't have it installed on your computer. Star Trek Online does not run on a pad. It can only run on a desktop machine. I know that it runs on Windows and Mac OS. I think you need to run a Windows virtualization environment on Linux in order to run Star Trek Online there, which is not ideal. You're going to be wasting a lot of resources with that. Wouldn't recommend it. Better to just go straight with the Windows 11 machine. All right, so those are the two pieces of equipment that you really, really need. Either a pad or a workstation, preferably both, but there are more than just that. So let's look at some of the other field kits that we can look at. Another device we can look at. This is so field kits are lists of recommended equipment that are categorized into specific activities. Sometimes the field kit contains just one piece of equipment, like a pad or a workstation. Sometimes it contains multiple pieces of equipment, but each one of these field kits is a separate list that is recommended that you as a crew member look to assemble on your own. So what is a PERSCAN? PERSCAN is short for personal scanning device. We've seen these a few times in Star Trek. The first time we noticed them was back in Star Trek The Motion Picture, where integrated into all of the Starfleet uniforms was what looked like a belt buckle, but it was this, and it was a device intended to scan the personal metrics of the person wearing the uniform, so life, their life signs and that kind of thing, and then report that information back to the medical system on the ship so that the chief medical officer can keep track of you while you're away on mission. So that is what the PERSCAN looked like in the year 2272, more or less. Now we have a 21st century equivalent of that, and that is a personal fitness tracking device or smartwatch. So here's just an example of one of these. That was one of the Fitbit smartwatches back in 2019, I think it was, when we originally came up with this idea. But there is a staggering variety of these devices available. This is not a requirement, but it is recommended, especially if you're participating in the fitness challenge. A PERSCAN is a very useful device. So there's a wide variety of these available, and you can choose from any number of different criteria. When I was choosing mine, there were two things that I was looking for. This is the one I chose, which is the Fossil Gen 6. I don't know if you can see that very well on the camera. What I wanted was a watch that was running the Google Wear OS operating system, and I wanted something that looked a little more elegant than most smartwatches, so that's the one I went with. But those are not necessarily your criteria. Anything running the Wear OS operating system is a good, solid choice. The Apple Watch is also a fairly good choice, especially if you are already embedded in the Apple ecosystem. If you have a Mac computer and an iPhone and that kind of thing, then an Apple Watch is probably your wearable of choice. The various Samsung Galaxy devices running the Tizen operating system are also very powerful. But even more affordable ones, things like Garmin or Fitbit or Polar, things like that, they're perhaps not quite as sophisticated. They don't have as large a library of third-party applications that you can install in them, but they are fine. They're very good. They have all the necessary equipment on board. And what kind of equipment are we talking about? What should we be really looking at when we are choosing a smartwatch? So one of the things is we want it to be compatible with your pad. We wanted to make sure that it can connect to your pad and report your fitness information to it. So whether that's your steps or your specific workouts, or maybe it's your running routes on your 5K or something like that, the more information, the better. And if it can report that back to your pad, so whether that's Google Fit or Samsung Health or Apple Health or Huawei Health or even something like Strava, you want to make sure that it's compatible so that they can talk the same language and that information that's being collected on your wrist is being reported somewhere. Other thing you might want to look at is built-in biosensors, so heart rate monitors, blood oxygen saturation, that kind of thing. Not all fitness trackers have that capability, and it's strictly speaking, it's not necessary, but it is nice to have that extra data, especially if you're tracking more intense workouts. It helps to calculate how much effort you've put into that exercise so that you can track your relative fitness over time. So it's not just how fast you ran or how many kilometers you did or something like that. It's also how hard were you working? How hard was your blood pumping while you were performing that workout? It's not essential, but it's nice to know. Then you want to make sure that the companion software is compatible with your third-party applications. So almost all PERSCANs will come with an app that you install on your pad. So although this is something you need to make sure of, it's almost a given, but you want to make sure that that companion software will actually talk to the third-party tools that need to have that information. So something like Google Fit or Strava, these are the third-party applications that we use to collect the data and then connect into StrideKick, which is the app that we use for our Dauntless Fitness Challenge. that without that third-party connectivity, it's going to be difficult for you to track that. You're going to have to log those steps manually. In fact, at the moment, Strava is not connecting to Google Fit or Google Health Connect, which is the new version of their health API. So those of us using Google-related devices are currently having to track our steps manually on StrideKick, but we are assured that that will be remedied before too long. Let's hope that that doesn't take too much longer. But that compatibility is quite important to make sure that that data is going then where it needs to go. And then you want to be looking at durability and water resistance. If your purse can falls apart after the first time you sweat into it and then it short circuits and dies on your wrist, that wasn't a good investment. Most wearable devices have at least an IPX6 rating. I think that's the correct code, which means that they're fairly rugged. They can take some water, they can take some knock around, they can take some dust. But you want to be checking that to make sure that you're not investing in something that is too fragile that's just going to fall apart on you. All right, so so that's the purse scan. Next one on the list is the emergency medical kit. So this is essentially a first aid kit, which allows you to address minor medical emergencies on the scene, on the ground when you're on mission. So what does that look like? So firstly, it includes a pad. Pad is quite important. It's part of most of these away mission kits. And you want to have installed in your pad a first aid reference app with offline capabilities. So the St. John's Ambulance First Aid app is a good choice for that. What it does is it provides you with a little library of things that you can do when you're interacting with somebody in a first aid situation. Now, I want to be clear that you don't need to be a certified first aider in order to carry and use a first aid kit, a med kit. But there are some things you should take into account when doing so. You might not necessarily be the most skilled person in the room if you're not a certified first aider, or even if you are a certified first aider, you might not be the most skilled person in the room at administering any of these interventions. So be sure to make it available to anybody who might be intervening when somebody has received an injury or is having a medical situation, but always defer to somebody who has more knowledge and experience than you do. But here's a standard list of things that you should probably include in a standard med kit. So some sterile gauze pads, a roll of adhesive tape, some adhesive bandages in various sizes, a roll of elastic bandage, antiseptic wipes, antiseptic ointment, antiseptic solution. So all three of these. Acetaminophen and ibuprofen. So these are two different painkillers. This one's a bit of an anti-inflammatory and a painkiller. This one's just a straight painkiller. Now, here's another very important point, and this is something that was stressed to me in my recent first aid recertification. Even as a certified first aider, and definitely not as somebody who doesn't even have that certification, you do not have the authority to prescribe or administer medication to a patient. You may not do that unless it's your child or your sibling or a close friend of yours. You can probably get away with it, but unless it's somebody that you know very, very well, you do not have the authority to administer or prescribe medication, even an over-the-counter painkiller, to somebody that you do not know. What you can do is you can inform the patient that you have these pills available and you can place them down in front of the person, and if they choose to take them, that is their choice. But you may not prescribe these medications and you may not administer them to somebody on your own authority. You don't have that permission. Somebody who is an EMT or a nurse or a doctor, they would know specifically what kinds of medical interventions they are authorized to administer on their own and which ones they're not. As a level 1 first aider, you are not authorized to administer any medications. You can intervene physically with things like bandages and that kind of thing, but you may not administer medication of any kind. You have to, you wouldn't even, it's not even allowed to hand over the medication to the patient. You can inform the patient that you have it and then stand back and let the patients do with that information what they will. Carrying on. Some tweezers are useful, some sharp scissors, safety pins, disposable instant cold packs are quite useful. That helps to treat burns. Calamine lotion, this can be for things like exposure to stinging nettles. Alcohol wipes or ethyl alcohol. Burn Shield is great. It's a local South African product, and it's a topical treatment that can be used on burns, not just on sort of fire burns or whatever, but also on chemical burns. You apply the ointment directly to the skin, and it helps to arrest the burning operation and helps to facilitate healing. You can get it either just as an ointment, or you can get bandages or entire blankets that are pre-treated in Burn Shield. They're quite affordable and local and available in local pharmacies all over the place, at least in South Africa. I assume there are international equivalents of Burn Shield, but you might need to Google around to find out what your local version of that product is. And then you want some plastic non-latex gloves. Why non-latex? Because some people have an allergy to latex, so you don't want to be triggering people's allergies while you are treating their wounds. And you're going to need at least 2 pairs of those. So that's kind of what that looks like in your med kit, and it should be carried in a container that is suitably marked as a med kit, so it has the little red cross on it. You want to avoid having any additional insignia on there, unless maybe it's a Starfleet Medical or Starfleet Command insignia, just because it becomes confusing, but something like that is a good place to do it. And you can find those containers that are MOLLE compatible or with tactical styling if you're looking for them. Next is an anthropology mission kit. So what is an anthropology mission? So this is the fancy name that we call movie nights. So when we go out to the cinema, we go watch a movie together, we call that an anthropology mission because we are studying the culture of 21st century Earth. And what do you include in an anthropology mission kit? Well, first of all, you're going to need, again, your pad. Why do you need your pad for an anthropology mission? Because you're going to need to be able to book your tickets, make purchases, all of that kind of thing. All of that happens on your pad now. Most people that I know don't even carry cards or cash anymore. You just carry your pad. So you're going to need your pad, and it's going to need to be fully charged. Then, although this is becoming less and less frequent of an occurrence, a lot of movies that we like to go to, sort of science fiction, epic dramas, that kind of thing, are presented in 3D or in IMAX 3D, and for that you're going to need some glasses. Now you can buy glasses at most theaters that have them, but it's a good idea to have a pair with you already so that you're not wasting plastic. And what are we talking about? And why are there 2 different pairs of glasses in the image there? Well, one is your regular pair of 3D glasses, look like this. They kind of look like cheap sunglasses, only they're yeah, that's what they look like, just regular cheap plastic sunglasses. But then you're also going to need a pair of IMAX 3D glasses. So if the theater that you're going to is IMAX compatible, they require a different set of 3D glasses. So if you look at those 2 next to each other, they are quite a different size. Why is the IMAX one bigger? Well, because the IMAX screen is larger. It takes up more of your field of view, so you need to have larger lenses on your 3D glasses in order to be able to take in the entire IMAX screen. That's quite important if you want to get the full 3D experience. As I said, that kind of thing happens less and less often. Fewer and fewer films, even big sci-fi epics, are tending not to be released in 3D anymore. But at least for the time being, we're going to keep those in the standard kit so that we can keep using them. And then you want to have a microfiber cloth so that you can clean them. We used to be able to find Starfleet branded microfiber cleaning cloths on the Starfleet Quartermaster. I'm not sure if those are still there, but they might be. Now, thing to consider with the container for the anthropology mission kit is you want it to be a little bit larger than you actually need. So you want to have something that's large enough to contain your glasses and your cloth and your pad, but maybe give it a little bit of extra space so that you can carry some snacks into the theater with you. Some theaters don't allow that, so by all means don't do things that are against the rules, but if your theater permits external snacks, then that's not a bad way of carrying them in with you. Next mission kit is the fitness training kit. So this is designed to provide the fitness training crew member with everything that they might require, especially for something like a 5K run, like a park run. So again, you need to have your pad, and your pad needs to be in, you need to double check that your pad has the relevant apps on it, including something like Google Fit, Apple Health, Runkeeper, or Strava, something that will allow you to record your run. It's a very good idea when you're carrying a pad to have some kind of a hands-free carrying pouch for your pad. So some fitness clothes will allow you to zip your pad up in a pocket or something like that. But if you don't have anything like that, then you probably will need a dedicated pad as carrying pouch, something like this. This is a waist belt. It's got a nice zip on there, and you can just wear that around the waist, and it will help to protect your pad, which is pretty cool. If, however, you are like me and your waist to hip ratio is 0, you're going to want to have something perhaps like this. So this is an arm-mounted pouch that then allows me to attach my pad to my bicep instead of my hips. Something like that, just to keep your pad safe and accessible while you are busy with your run. You want to have a hydration system. So could be something as simple as a water bottle, or it could be something as complicated as one of those camelback devices, sort of a backpack with a water hose that comes around to the front. Whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with, you just want to make sure that it has enough hydration fluid in it for the duration of your workout activity. If you're like me, I no longer need to hydrate during a 5K run, but that wasn't the case for the first couple of years while I was doing park run. So you want to make sure you're properly hydrated during the duration of your workout, and that can contain water or sort of energy drink or Powerade or any other thing that might help you get properly hydrated through your run. Then you want to have running shoes. So the level of running shoes you want to incorporate into your kit will depend entirely on how seriously you take your running. Any pair of trainers are enough to do a 5K run, really, especially once you're starting out. But once you get to a point where you are fine-tuning your performance, you might want to look at specializing the footwear that you're getting. So something like street running shoes are not going to help you very well if you are on a trail running course, because there's not enough padding. They're a little bit too flexible, and you're going to struggle to find purchase in sanding areas, or vice versa. If you're using trail running shoes on a street run, you'll find that they are too rigid, and they're not going to be very comfortable. Very important, you want to make sure that you have sunscreen. So although for both physical and mental mission readiness, you want to make sure you get enough sunshine to generate your vitamin D production. A little bit too much sunshine can be hazardous in the opposite direction. So in order to strike that balance, you want to make sure you have some sunscreen to protect your skin from too much sun. Then you want to have your parkrun barcode. So especially for those of us who are doing the parkrun missions, parkrun is an international weekly timed 5K run that happens in parks all over the world. It is free to register. Just go to parkrun.com, I think it is, to register for your parkrun barcode. Once you have registered, you can then download the barcode on a printable sheet of paper. I didn't think to have one here with me. You can cut one out as sort of credit card size, have it laminated and carry it with you. You can slip it in with your pad into your carrying pouch or whatever. If you find that cumbersome, or you're worried that you're going to lose it, I recommend getting one of these parkrun wristbands like this, like the image there as well. What this does is it has your barcode on it. It also has your in case of emergency contact details. So it has it has your name, it has the phone number of the person that they would need to contact in case of emergency. So in other words, if you are in a medical emergency and someone needs to contact someone on your behalf, those details will be on your band, as well as your medical aid information. So let's say you're running and you fall down the cliff and you are unconscious. They need to be able to contact the relevant people and have you shipped off to the nearest hospital and have it billed correctly. So all of that information is contained both on your parkrun barcode card and also on your barcode band. You can buy these again from parkrun.com. They're fairly reasonably priced. So that's a cool and simple thing to carry with you. And then you want to have, okay, so that's the required stuff. That's what you really need to have in your fitness kit. Now, with all of these kits, this is a recommended minimum level of contents for your kit. We might also make some recommendations for possible expansions to your kit, things that you can upgrade it with. But then there's no reason you can't continue to expand on that list even further. You can add more stuff to your kit as you grow, as you develop in your Starfleet career. So here's some recommended upgrades for your fitness trick. So your per-scan device, if you have one, that's a good idea to keep it because this is what it's for. You want to have sunglasses with polarized lenses. So this is going to protect your vision. I wear these. These are quite nice because they're quite rugged, they're light, and they grip my head quite tightly, so they're not going to fall off while they're running. But those polarized lenses are quite good, especially if you're running in daytime, because prolonged exposure to daylight can also damage your vision long term. So the polarized lenses is going to protect your eyes from a considerable amount of that glare, which is potentially harmful. You want to have a headset connected to your pad or your per-scan for listening to music or podcasts or audiobooks or something like that. Again, I use these. These are little wireless Samsung earbuds, whatever version of that you prefer. I like the wireless ones because they are more convenient. I don't have cables dangling around me while I'm running, but whatever your preference is. And then a hat is a good idea, again, to protect you just that little bit more from the sun. The sun is, although it is an important source of all life, it is also hazardous when taken in excess, as with just about anything. So a hat, and it wouldn't hurt to have one of these dauntless caps as part of your repertoire anyway. So that is the fitness training kit, or at least the recommended minimum, and you can grow it from there. Then we get to the tactical simulation kit. So what is tactical? Tactical essentially means gaming. So for running a variety of different tactical simulations, you'll probably want to have some equipment on hand that will allow you to do all of those things. So this encompasses the ability to do tactical simulations both digitally, so digital tactical simulations like Star Trek Online, and also physical ones, tabletop games. And this hopefully provides a more or less minimum level of equipment that you might need to do those kinds of things. So first item is a portable computer. So in other words, a laptop that is, we're looking at a portable workstation then that has the necessary software on it, Star Trek Online, Discord, and a PDF reader application. PDF readers are kind of built into most operating systems now, I think. Most browsers also have built-in PDF readers, so you probably don't need to download and install Acrobat Reader anymore. Hopefully, just make sure that your PC is capable of reading PDFs. Why PDF reader? Because the rules documents for most of the games that we play are published in the form of PDF. So you want to be able to read those rules. So having that PDF reader is quite important. Next, you want to have a single, at least one Star Trek CCG deck in second edition. So make sure that you've got a Star Trek CCG deck that is printed out and ready to go. The previous briefing that we did last week was on Star Trek CCG. So you can look through the Trek CC website, find a deck list that appeals to you, print it out, sleeve it, put it in a box, and have it ready in your tactical simulation kit. Now here we get into the weeds a little bit. We have the one Magic the Gathering deck modern format. This is perhaps a little outdated. I think the modern format is probably not as well supported as it was back when this list was first compiled. It was fairly popular back then. The Commander format I know is very popular still, but modern maybe less so. But one Magic deck Commander format so that you're ready to whip that out. And why have both a Star Trek CCG deck and a Magic deck? The reason why we would want to be able to play both of those games is for a number of things. Firstly, non-Starfleet officers do not play Star Trek CCG. Nobody does. Only Star Trek fans play that game. So if you want to play a game with somebody who's not a member of the crew, you're probably going to have to go with something a little bit more mainstream, and that means Magic. Second, a game of Magic is a lot quicker than Star Trek CCG. A Star Trek CCG game lasts typically an hour, whereas a game of Magic, including shuffling, can be as quick as 15 minutes. So if you have a shorter amount of time available, you can just whip out a Magic deck and play a game of Pioneer or Historic or whatever. The Commander format of the game can typically take a little bit longer, but again is more casual, and you're more likely to be able to include civilians in your game. So having all three of those decks available, I think is worth it. Next, you want to have a set of polyhedral dice. So that looks like this. So you've got one D4, a four-sided dice, one D6, a D8, D10, D12, a normal D20, a spin-down D20. So this is what they use for tracking your life in Magic the Gathering. But it's also useful to have two D20s, one of each kind, and a D100. So this is an almost complete set of polyhedral dice. The only thing I don't have in this container is spin-down D20s. That's in a separate container, but I have so many of those. You're also going to want to carry a pencil, an eraser, and a notepad. So this is for if you're playing tabletop role-playing games. Sometimes it's not practical to whip out your pad to keep notes, so it's useful to have those the old school paper and pencil way of keeping notes. Also, you might need to be tracking your character sheet on pencil and paper as well. A lot of GMs and DMs require that old standard. Then again, you want to have your pad loaded with any additional software you might need. Of course, Discord is still the requirement. And then you want to have some extra power batteries for your pad. So a power bank that's at least 5,000 milliamp hours, preferably something larger than that. So this is in case the game that you're playing is on your pad itself, so that you don't run out of power. Let's say you're playing Magic the Gathering Arena or Hearthstone or something like that is going to need some power. Apologies, my non-humanoid companion is screaming at me from across the room, but hopefully that's not too disruptive. The container you'll need for this is going to be a bit bigger. Something like a backpack is probably fine. Again, you can find decent Molly-styled backpacks online. That's easy enough to find. Next, okay, we've already looked at the workstation. Next one we're looking at is biohazard gear. Thankfully, this one isn't really needed all that much anymore. This is one that we constructed for use during the pandemic, and it consisted of an N95 face mask, some portable hand sanitizer, and your vaccination certificate. Again, we haven't needed to use this, at least not in South Africa, for at least the last 2.5 years. So hopefully we'll never have to use these again, but we've kept it on the list for the time being in case. And then there's this one, which is an interesting one, which is the away mission leader kit. So if you are commanding an away mission, it's a good idea to have a little bit of extra equipment that the rest of the team might not have with them. So first of all, your pad. Next, you want to have with you a self-portrait monopod, or a selfie stick. This is because as the mission commander, it's your role to make sure that there is photographic evidence of the fact that the mission happened, and that of everyone who was present at the mission, especially of who attended in uniform. And making sure that you have a photograph of everybody, including yourself, can be a little bit challenging unless you can extend your arm such that you can take that photograph. So there is a couple of different designs available. The one in the image there is something like this. This is a very basic self-portrait monopod. It folds up and fits in your pocket. It extends like this. You mount your pad into that bracket there, and it extends out to the better part of a meter. If your pad is one of the old ones that still has a headphone jack, you can plug that in there, which then allows you to use this trigger to activate the photo taking application. If your pad is like mine, that it no longer has a headphone jack, then you can use one of the other methods, either gestural, voice command, or a timer or something like that. That's the basic self-portrait monopod. If you feel like you need something a little more advanced, you might need something like this, which uses, it can extend even more, up to almost 2 meters. It has standard photographic equipments on the top and on the bottom. Oh, this has fallen off. I'll have to find the piece that goes on there. But it also has a standard photographic adapter on the bottom there, and it also has a detachable Bluetooth remote that allows you to control your pad from a distance. So you can even attach a little tripod to the bottom and step away and have this take the photographs for you. It's a very useful piece of equipment. It's just a little bulky, so unless you're carrying a laptop, this might not be the most practical for every use. And then the next thing you want to carry with you is a transport marker. So what is a transport marker? So this is a printable PDF that you can print out and laminate, fold it in half. You fold it down that line in the middle. And then you can stand it on a table. So especially if you are a new away team member or away team leader, or you have somebody who's joining you for the mission who you haven't met before, this allows you to mark the table that you're sitting at as being the place, the rendezvous point for your away team. So people don't necessarily have to recognize you by your face or by your photograph or anything like that. They can look for this this beam down marker, and they know that you are the person that they are coming to meet. So as the away team leader, it's a good idea if you are meeting up with new members to display this beam down marker on the table at the rendezvous point for your mission. You can mount it to a little stick or perhaps a little wooden block or something like that if you wanted to stand up, or if you just laminate it the right way and fold it up, then you can have it stand on the table. All right, so those are all the various different standard equipment kits that we advocate on the Dauntless. Now we have, we're adding to this list all the time. We're tweaking those requirements from time to time, like those, for example, those tactical simulation kits. Although we still include Magic the Gathering decks, we actually haven't played Magic as a crew in a very long time. So we might decide to revise those kits and take them out, or we might decide to add more games in, or something like that. And all of those kits, they are recommended minimums. So start off with the guidelines that we presented there, and then build them out from there with whatever additional whatever additional equipment you think might be useful. And if you'd like to make recommendations, my OBS studio has disconnected from YouTube. Okay, we're back online. Sorry about that, YouTube folks. If we had a momentary disruption, it seems to have resolved itself. All right, so let us look back through the comment section. Okay, I've only got one comment here that's tagged for me, and that is, when are we doing a HEMA day? HEMA is Historical European Martial Arts, and that is my martial art of choice, in which we study the various combat systems of mostly the European Middle Ages, but also going back further than that. It's, for the most part, different kinds of sword fighting, but includes various other combat modalities as well. And that's what I practice. It's not as perhaps as real world applicable as something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I enjoy it. It fits my personality just right. When are we doing a HEMA day? That actually is a good idea. I'd be interested in doing a very basic introductory class to some sword fighting footwork and maybe a little bit of sparring. I would need to construct the relevant equipment so that we could all fight together. That would involve me assembling some what we call foamies. So these are practice swords that we can use to hit each other with without having cumbersome and expensive safety equipment added to the list. But that's something I can do. I can assemble something like that, and hopefully we can put something like that together in the next few months. That could be a lot of fun, actually. Let's see. Okay, we've got here the current minimum specs. I assume that's for Star Trek Online. It looks like they're pretty similar to what I had listed on the page there. So things don't seem to have upgraded very much. Again, Windows is the correct operating system if you want to run Star Trek Online. Otherwise, you're going to have some kind of virtualization environment, especially if you're running Linux. You're just making your own life more difficult. I don't know why you would want to do that to yourself. Okay, then. All right, last thing, please tell Van Groenen sunscreen is compulsory. I don't want to say it's compulsory, but it is very strongly recommended. It is quite important. So I'm a very strong advocate for the need for sunshine because you need to stimulate your natural production of vitamin D. You simply can't get enough vitamin D through dietary input. You can't eat enough vitamin D to satisfy your need for it. So you do need some sun exposure. And sunscreen is going to diminish your ability to generate sunscreen from vitamin D from sun exposure, but the risk probably is outweighed by the benefit. The benefit is probably outweighed by the risk of skin cancer, really, which is the thing that you are most at risk from, most at risk of when it comes to sun exposure. So having just a couple of serious sunburns can drastically increase your vulnerability to things like skin cancer, which is not ideal. And speaking as somebody who works outdoors a lot, I get a lot of sun exposure, and I often forget to apply my sunscreen. So I'm as guilty as anyone of this, but at least I can try to practice better than I preach, which is to say, please remember your sunscreen. It's compulsory for Van Groenen. Yes, well, Captain Van Groenen, last time I saw him, was practically translucent. So yes, it's probably a good idea if you are not, if you haven't built up enough melanin in your skin to protect you to some extent from the UV. You want to make sure that you have extra protection from the sun. So the lighter your natural complexion, the higher your risk level from ultraviolet exposure. So somebody who has a very high albedo to their skin, like Captain Van Groenen, probably needs even more protection than someone like myself. Colonel Eber says, I've been wearing UV protection sleeves when I'm running as well because the sun is aggressive lately. Yeah, that's a good idea. Some clothing items have a measure of UV protection in them, so that can also be helpful. All right, I think that is all that we needed to cover for today. Again, you are always welcome to join us for these live screenings in the Screening Room channel on Discord if you're an active duty member of the crew. Otherwise, you can join us on YouTube, or you can follow up with these videos after the fact, and that is perfectly acceptable. So I'd like to conclude with a reminder that acquiring and maintaining standard equipment, including uniforms and field kits and online tools, digital tools like Discord, is essential for a Starfleet officer to be considered mission ready. By ensuring that they have the necessary tools and resources, officers can effectively carry out their duties, represent the USS Dauntless professionally, and contribute to the success of the chapter's mission. Thank you. That is all for today. You are dismissed. SWAT out.